So if you're watching this after the fact, welcome. I'm just going to wait and let some people join into the feed here. That's sort of what this beginning part is about. Might look a little strange. It might look like I'm kind of just fiddling with the computer, but I assure you that I'm just waiting for people to join in to the feed here. It's not very helpful to give instruction when there's nobody present to hear it. I might also invite some people, so you might hear some clicking going on, and that's what that is me sort of inviting people into the feed here, to the live video. And let's see here. Unfortunately, it doesn't list everybody, but there are at least a few people who I think are interested. So I'll invite them. And then we'll just wait and see who else shows up. Hello, Melissa. Welcome, Meredith, Sammy, Brandy, Cara, Elaine, Amanda, Robin. So we got 11 folks, looks like, who are joining us right now, 12 folks. And so again, today's, you're welcome, Amanda, welcome on board, welcome, August. So today's about learning meditation in the style that I practice and that I teach to others. Hi, Meredith, Kristen. And so we'll take it just step by step. Some of you have heard this before and you're familiar with it already. It's really not very complicated, but what you will learn, hi Kristen, what you'll learn is that simple or easy, or simple doesn't mean easy. So meditation, if it's practiced properly, is effortless but challenging or difficult. Welcome, Lisa. Welcome, Laura. So it doesn't really necessarily make sense. Welcome, Katie and Trisha, Heather. Hey, Dad. It doesn't make sense until you try it. So there's this odd tension between trying to be as effortless as possible when you're practicing, because you, as you conceive of yourself, you are not doing the meditation. Really, meditation is about you. Hi, Sibley, welcome. Meditation is about you, as you conceive of yourself, getting out of the way. All right? So that's hard for us to do. We don't know how to do it. So most of us really struggle with it. As we meditate, we find that we are in the way and we don't really know how to get ourselves out of the way. And that's all part of the process of meditation. And the more effortless you can be without being lazy, without falling asleep, without zoning out, without just letting your mind kind of wander all over the place, the more effortless you can be but present, then the better, basically, the better it's going to be. So it's confusing because yes, you want to be effortless, and yes, you want to be present. And really, they are the same thing, but it will not feel like they are the same thing. They will feel like very different things. It will feel like, unless I make a huge effort, I can't be present. But actually, you're not present when you're making an effort. It's really when you're effortless that you sort of fall into true presence. Okay? So we got about 23 people here. For anyone who shows up late, welcome, Jen, Tony. Miss you too, Jim. Giselle, Maggie, Marissa, welcome everybody. So I know more people might join in. That's kind of the nature of the Facebook Live thing, but I'm probably not going to wait much longer to start with my instructions. So anyone who shows up late, you are more than welcome to save this video, to go back and watch it again as many times as you need to. I will also try and post it up on my Patreon page, on my YouTube page as well, so that it will be there in the future if you need it. I also have several recordings that I've made over the years of these instructions. It is a great idea to listen to this recording over and over again, as well as to hear different times that I've given the instructions, because they're always a little bit different, and you also are different. So you may hear something in the future that you didn't hear today, even though I said it today. So you might find when you go back and you listen, oh, I didn't catch that the first time. I will also say that it is more common than not to misunderstand the instructions. Okay, so it's just part of the process. You don't have to get upset about it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to, oh, he said I'm going to misunderstand. What should I do? You can't do anything about it. That's just part of the learning process. So just know that probably at the beginning you're going to start meditating, and you're going to meditate sort of with the wrong attitude and the wrong approach at first, and that's okay. That's natural. It doesn't mean that it won't have some beneficial effects for you. And like I said, it's part of the learning process. I don't know, there was one person who once gave they said there's no such thing as a Zen master, because you never master Zen, and I really like that. So anyone who's going around saying I'm a Zen master, something like that, they maybe don't know what Zen really is, okay? Other people maybe call you a Zen master, whatever, but I mean, I really like that. Nobody masters Zen. So let's just leave it at that. Okay, so this is a constant unfolding, and again, we don't really do it, and our egos hate that, because we want to be the heroes. We want to do everything. We want to do meditation. You don't do it. Okay, when you are doing meditation the way I'm teaching you, you are again getting out of the way. You are getting out of the way. You're allowing something else to come in. Okay, so again, for those of you that are joining late, very simple. There are basically 3 things for your meditation that you will need. Again, simple does not mean easy. So one of the traps of the ego is it takes very effective. Generally in spirituality, the simpler something is, the more powerful it is. The exact opposite of what we normally think. We normally think the more complicated it is, the harder it is, and that means it's better. But in spirituality, a lot of times simpler is actually more powerful. And again, in a sense, this technique is completely effortless. It doesn't mean it's going to feel effortless for you, but in a very real sense, this is about just letting go completely. And that's a scary thing for a lot of people, and it's a process for most people. So just be patient with yourself. Just try and take bite-sized chunks, one bit at a time. Okay? Now, you can post questions in the comments, but once I get on my cushion, which I'm going to do in a moment, I will not be able to read them from where I'm going to be. So feel free to post questions, and I will try and get to them a little later on in the presentation if I can. And I'm also thinking about doing a follow-up to this for those of you who sort of picked this up this week and start practicing. Then I will try and maybe we'll have a Zoom session or a Skype session, and we can have some Q&A, because a lot of times the real questions are going to come up once you start trying this. Okay, so I'm going to start teaching it to you. What I recommend is that you start doing what I describe as I describe it. So as I talk you into the posture and into the practice, I would start doing these things. Okay, so let's begin by looking at my meditation cushion. Okay, so this is something that when I bought this, which was back in the 90s, when I first started meditating, you had to order them from like a mail order catalog. We didn't have Amazon and all that kind of stuff. It was kind of like a niche thing. Now you can get them on Amazon. They may even sell them at Target. I have no idea. It's very, very popular these days, and it's very easy to get a meditation cushion set. So this is pretty standard in many different meditation traditions. This bottom part is called a zabuton. It's a Japanese word. These are Zen. These come generally from the Zen tradition, but even though, like I said, many traditions use them. So I've seen Tibetan centers use the same cushions. Other types of meditation centers use these same things. So they're very ubiquitous for meditation. So zabuton is the big flat one, and the one on top is called a zafu. Now, as I said, I bought this back in the 90s, so these are like 30 years old at this point, and it's the same set. So here's the good news. If you're serious about your meditation, you invest in a good set, meditation cushion set. I don't think you need to buy another one as long as you live. Maybe, if you get something cheap and it falls apart, but these are from Dharma Crafts, and I do recommend them. Again, they've been around a long time. And I think you can order them on Amazon. And if you can't, you can get online. It's very easy to find them. So these have been solid for me. Just, no need to buy another set. So if you're at home and you don't have this, then I recommend getting something similar. Maybe put a folded quilt down on the ground. It shouldn't be too soft. Okay, this is not, it's somewhat, it gives a little bit, but it's not super soft. So it's a little bit firm. You could even, if you have a yoga blanket or a yoga mat, you can maybe fold that up a couple times. That might work. And then for the zabuton, you could use a yoga block. You could also fold up a yoga blanket like several times so it becomes sort of like a little square. I'll show you what I mean. So if you have sort of a standard yoga blanket, folding it like that, so it looks something like that now, it's that approximates the size of the zabuton there. And then you can also see over there is my Seiza bench. Okay, so that's another option, and I'll show you how that works. Now, again, I'm really going to emphasize there's just more and more evidence coming out every day how meditation rewires and changes your brain, and how good it is for not just your physical health, but your mental health as well. So what I recommend is just invest. Make the commitment today. And it might sit there for 10 years, 20 years unused. Maybe this week you try it a few times. You're like, God, this isn't for me. You stop. But hopefully it'll be sitting there looking at you, and it will keep calling to you to do your meditation practice. Okay, so my recommendation is it's good for you. We already know that. It helps with stress and all kinds of things. The evidence keeps piling up. So just make the investment for yourself, for your health, and then try and make the commitment to start practicing. Okay? All right, so let's get into the practice. The way that I teach meditation is the way I was taught, and there are basically three elements to the meditation practice. So one is posture. Okay? Now, that's very important in this tradition. So the meditation tradition that I was brought up in is Zen meditation. I don't know if the way I teach would be the way that a Zen teacher would teach it or be approved of. I don't really care. I teach based on my own experience, which is beyond just the Zen tradition, but it definitely incorporates what I learned from Zen. Okay? So posture, first thing. Second thing, breath. And then third thing is awareness, okay? So we're gonna go over them in that order. And again, posture is important. Is it the only thing? Is it the most important thing? No. Is it important? Yes. All three aspects of that triangle or pyramid are important. So we don't want to ignore any one of them, okay? Doesn't mean we want to obsess about any of them either, but it also means we don't want to just, oh, well, I don't really care about posture. Sometimes I see people and their posture is very poor, and I know they could do better if they made an effort. So really got to just commit to doing your best for all of this, okay? Now, again, I cannot communicate everything about this practice in this session, all right? And so you've probably heard it a million times in yoga circles, and you've heard it a million times because it's true. Teacher is important, okay? So I can teach you a technique today, teach you something today. You can learn it, and you go away thinking you know it. And again, I said at the beginning, more often than not, you are not going to understand it properly, especially at the beginning. And you are going to make common mistakes. That is just part of the learning curve. It isn't something that you should expect that you're going to avoid. They're just common pitfalls. Most people fall into them. It's fine. It's to be expected. And then there are certain pitfalls that come later. Okay, and if I try and tell you everything now, I try and head off every possible mistake, every possible place of confusion, you're just going to be overwhelmed, and you're not even going to know where to start. Okay, so just one step at a time. All right, let's look at the posture. So the posture in this tradition it starts with a stable 3-point base. Now, this is the most common position that I'm aware of, especially for people in the West or practicing in the West like we are. Okay, so we weren't born in an Asian culture sitting on the ground, however it is, in lotus, half lotus, kneeling, whether it's Japan or India or China, most of us were born sitting in chairs. So this is called the Burmese posture. Again, a very, very popular posture. We have one heel in front of the other, okay? And my heels are just sort of sitting in front of the zabuton. My buttocks is on the cushion, the zafu, and then my knees, you'll notice, are actually in contact with the cushion. Now, the way many Westerners try and approach this looks like this. This is incorrect. Okay, we might call this crisscross applesauce or whatever the heck they call it. Assuming my legs cross, my knees are up. This is incorrect. For one thing, my back is rounding as I do this. Another thing, my knees are up, so I'm not very stable. All right, we want a stable 3-point base. Both knees are on the ground, buttocks is on the cushion, okay? Now, this is an asymmetrical posture. And what this means is each time I meditate, each time I sit to meditate, I am going to have to alternate feet, okay? So that's just one of the things that comes with doing an asymmetrical posture is you need to keep changing it up. Otherwise, you're going to create imbalances in your body over time. Okay, another popular choice, the half lotus, right? One foot on top of the other thigh, both knees on the ground. Half lotus and lotus, in my experience, for most people are not suitable because your legs go to sleep big time. Now, your legs might go to sleep in the Burmese posture as well. That's okay. I mean, for some people, it's unavoidable that your legs sometimes go to sleep. So don't worry about it too much, but this can be rather extreme. However, if you know you can sit for about 20 or 30 minutes with your legs in half or full lotus, then by all means do so. It's a very traditional position for doing this kind of meditation. But I will try and emphasize to you that if we could take our legs off and put them away and just sit this little stump down, say, maybe a pot or something, so it just stays upright, and meditate that way, that's what we would do, okay? The legs are more or less in the way. They are a distraction. The hips, they ache. We have pains in our knees and our ankles and our back. These things are basically a distraction. If we could put them off, we would. So don't think that this is some magic that's happening down here in our legs, and if we don't get our legs exactly right, that means the magic isn't going to happen. This is a very common, silly mistake that people make in yoga and when learning meditation, that they obsess about posture and they are missing other important aspects of the practice. Is posture important? Yes. Is it the most important thing? No. Okay. Is it important? Yes. Pay attention to it. Do your best. Is it the only thing you should be obsessing about? No, absolutely not. There are other things that you should be paying attention to. Okay? So this is one way to sit, legs crossed. This is called an external rotation. Let's look at another way of doing it, what we call internal rotation. Okay, this is another way. This is called seiza. Now I'm sitting with my knees, out in front of me like this, basically parallel. I could take them wider. I could bring them in closer. My feet are back behind me. I'm sitting on the cushion. Another way is to take the cushion, instead of laying it like that, you turn it upright. So I turn it upright and I sit on it like this. Okay? Now I'm a little higher. There's less flexion in my knee joint. Okay, if I have problems with my knees or too much pressure on my ankles, this might be a great way to sit. Very similar is this bench. Again, it's called a seiza bench, and you can buy them online. And you might, again, if you're going to commit to this, you might get on Amazon, buy a cushion, the zabutam, the zafu. They usually come as a set. You can get different colors. Mine are black, which is very traditional for Zen, but you could choose another color combination. And you might get one of these benches too, okay? Especially if you plan on meditating a lot. So bench looks like that. My feet are inside of the bench, and I'm sitting on it. You see I'm even higher now, right? My knees, less flexion at the knee, no pressure on my ankles. So this is a very popular choice. They do make them where the legs fold up, so you can put it in your suitcase, take it with you, okay? So stable 3-point base, okay? Very, very important. I recommend maybe trying to find 1 or 2 ways that you can sit comfortably, again, with that 3-point base. What about a chair? Chair is perfectly fine. Again, you would sit with your buttocks right on the edge of the chair. You do not sit back on the back of the chair. You sit right on the edge of it, both feet firmly planted on the ground. Okay? All right. So again, if there are questions, you can leave them in the comment box. I will try and get to them at the end, depending on how long this takes. All right, let's move on. So stable 3-point base, important. Okay, don't ignore that. Sometimes when I give instruction to people, the next minute when I go to adjust them, I see them, their knees are popping up, their hands are doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Please pay attention to these things. They are important, okay? All right, let's move into the hands. Hands, this is called the cosmic or universal mudra, okay? Mudras, you might have heard of them in yoga. They're super important. All right, so mudra, this mudra, right hand, palm up, left hand goes on top of it, and this middle joint and the middle finger, okay, we line those up, and the thumbs join together, okay, and we create this little mudra here. Thumbs are joined together, one hand rests in the other, and this rests in my lap. My arms are relaxed. I'm not hugging my sides. I'm also not doing that, okay? The arms is just almost like I let my arms fall down, relaxed, and then I just pick my hands up and join them together like that. The shoulders are relaxed, down away from the ears. It may take months or possibly even longer for your shoulders to completely release their tension. That's a very common complaint for new meditators. Oh, I feel this tension in my neck and my back. It will release, but it may take a while. A long time. So you might feel like, oh my God, this is like the hardest thing, it's so painful. It will pass, but it may take some while for your body to acclimate. Same with pain in your back and your hips and your knees and things. We'll talk more about pain later or maybe in another session. But for now, I just want to get you the basics. All right, so the cosmic mudra. Now, the spine is straight. Ears, shoulders, hips align. Okay, so if I were looking at you from the side and I drew a line, I would intersect your ears, your shoulders, and then your hips straight down in a line. Okay? Now, our bodies aren't made with straight lines and right angles. So, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is sort of what we're shooting for. Okay? Nothing in this reality, physical reality, is perfect, but we can still strive toward perfection. Okay? So it's never going to be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect song. There's no such thing as a perfect yoga pose. It just doesn't exist. There's not even a such thing as a perfect circle. Okay? It just can't, it's not physically possible. Okay? So forget about perfection, but keep striving toward it. Okay? You're never going to get there. That's okay. But we keep striving toward it. Okay? So I'm always doing my best. Many of you who've taken my class have heard me say that many times. Always do your best. All right. So spine is erect. All right. We have a little of a curve in the spine. Again, I'm not doing this hunch thing. And again, when I go to adjust people on meditation retreat, they're leaning over like that. You know, you need to have that nice, erect, upright spine. And that can be very difficult at first. I recognize that. It's worth the effort. Okay. Now the chin tucks slightly. The tongue rests behind your upper teeth, just sort of right behind them. It's not pressing hard, but just sort of resting there behind the teeth. Okay. The chin is tucked. And then the eyes are open. The eyes are open. The eyes are open. I cannot emphasize this enough. I know there are other traditions where you close your eyes. Great. This tradition, we keep our eyes open. Okay? Very important. They are downcast and they are out of focus. So it is not about focusing on one point. Okay? It's not a practice called Trataka, which we use in yoga. This is not that practice. It's not about a drishti or anything like that. The eyes are downcast and they are out of focus. And when we practice, we actually practice facing the wall. Okay, so that's why this wall is here. That's why my cushion is against the wall. This is where I meditate. Okay, I don't meditate facing in this direction. I face that direction. Okay, so yes, your eyes are open, but the distractions are minimized. People have a really hard time with eyes open. Okay, we carry a lot of tension in our eyes, and our eyes, you might say, of all the senses, are the one that cause us to believe in a reality that really doesn't exist. All right, I'm not going to get into the metaphysics of what that means, but basically our eyes create a kind of an optical illusion of separateness, and that's our brains interpret it that way. And most of us are totally hoodwinked into believing that, you know, we're separate from our environment and other people and all this kind of stuff. And it's really just an optical illusion. There really isn't any real separation. Everything is fluid, flowing one thing into another all the time. Everything's changing all the time. So eyes are a big part of this. And we don't walk around with our eyes closed. Okay? So again, people always ask me, can I close my eyes? Why can't I close my eyes? I usually meditate with my eyes closed. You don't walk around with your eyes closed, do you? And this is, you could say, training for life. All right? So we're practicing so that when we are out in our day, eventually, we don't want to jump to this, but eventually what we find is our whole day is a meditation. In fact, you could say we are nothing but meditation. All right? Again, I don't expect you to understand that at this point. But at a certain point, we realize meditation isn't something we do. Meditation is what we are. That's all there is meditation. All right, and we don't walk around with our eyes closed. If you walk around with your eyes closed, great, meditate with your eyes closed. But if you walk around with your eyes open, you got to keep your eyes open. All the gates of the senses are open in this kind of meditation. This meditation is not about checking out. It's not about going to some kind of empty or blank state where we are, empty of all thoughts. This is about the right relationship with our thoughts, with our senses, with everything. Because again, meditation, you could say, is what we really are. Now, most of us aren't going to make sense of that statement, because it's like, well, why are you teaching me meditation? Because you don't know who you really are. That's why. All right. So we have to relearn, be retrained. We have to realize the truth of what we are. And that's what this practice is about. And again, our small self, our little ego, doesn't do it. It just has to be willing to get out of the way. And so that's what this is about. So eyes are open. The chin is tucked. Eyes are downcast. Blurry eyes. Okay? Out of focus. We're not trying to focus on a point. Out of focus. And when you're facing the wall, you'll be right up against the wall. So, one thing that people do, sometimes they try and back away from the wall. No, you want to be right up against it. Your knees are basically touching the wall. Okay, you're right up there. And then again, your eyes are out of focus. So it's like you're looking through the wall. Like you're looking about 2 or 3 feet in front of you, but the wall is right here. So you would be looking at that point, except that point would be through the wall. Okay, I hope that's clear. And again, I'm available to all of you as a resource for follow-up. So if some of this isn't clear, if when you try it out, you're confused, again, that's natural. It's to be expected. Don't worry about it. Just get clarification, get in touch with me, and we'll clear it up, okay? Again, even if you understand all of my instructions today perfectly, as you progress, other things will come up. Okay, this is why it's important to have a relationship with a teacher. I'm never going to say that you have to have a teacher. I am going to say that it is so much easier and more enjoyable to have a teacher in a community to practice with. It can make all the difference. It did for me, certainly, and I think it does for many of the people who are my students. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's move on. If you have questions about the posture, leave them in the comment box, and again, I will try and address them. We're going to move on to breath. So many of you, I suspect, are yogis, okay? And in yoga, we learn a lot of techniques for manipulating the breath, and these are very helpful, all right? Now, generally speaking, in yoga, especially the type that most of us practice, which is a form of what's called hatha yoga. Hatha means force, okay? In hatha yoga, we're generally going from using more force to less force or effort, okay? If your practice is going well, you're going from very forceful, very vigorous, almost athletic type exercises like vinyasa, and then maybe you're starting to do some yin, and then, ooh, okay, yoga nidra. At first I hated yoga nidra, but now I actually look forward to it, right? And then maybe you're doing some pranayams, things like that, mudras, bandhas, that kind of energetic work. And then one day, hopefully, you end up in meditation. Do you have to do that like that? No. You can just jump right to meditation. That's what I did. I didn't do any of that other stuff before. I didn't know about any of it. In the tradition that I was introduced to, which is the Zen tradition, you just meditate. Forget all that other stuff. Just meditate, okay? So all this other stuff is an aid. It's a preparation. But when we get to this point, when we're meditating, we want to let go of all that efforting, all right? It was great. It served its purpose because now we're meditating. That's how we know we're ready to meditate, all right? And I mean this both in a microcosmic and a macrocosmic sense, okay? So I both mean on a given day, we might find we're having a lot of trouble. We're not ready to meditate. We're having trouble getting on our cushion. We might do some postures first. We might do some vinyasa or yin or pranayams. We might do a yoga nidra, and then we find that we can meditate after that, whereas before it just seemed impossible. But also, I mean, in a larger sense, if after hearing these instructions, you try this out this week and you're like, oh my God, I can't. This is just too much. It's too miserable. I can't do it. Well, then start to look at your yoga practice. Are you still just doing vinyasa? You started with vinyasa and you're still just doing vinyasa? Maybe try some yin. Maybe you're already doing yin. Start to look at some pranayams, some breathing techniques, okay? Maybe you're already doing that. Yoga nidra, okay? You're just slowly working yourself towards more and more effortless practices that have more stillness in them, okay? And this is, for me, the end of the road. This is the last practice because it's basically a technique where there's no technique. Okay, so breathing, very much in line with that. We learn all kinds of breathing techniques, holding our breath, breathing out of one nostril or the other, making sounds with our breath. All of that is useful. But at this point, our assumption is it has served its purpose. Now we want to let it go. In the Buddhist tradition, we have a saying that a person who uses a raft to get from one shore to the next and then tries to carry the raft on the other shore doesn't understand the purpose of the raft. Okay? So if I learn a breathing technique and I say, oh, that technique was so great, it calmed me down and relaxed me, so I'm going to use it while I meditate. Well, I didn't understand the purpose of the technique, which was to calm me down. Now that I'm calm, I'm ready to meditate. I let go of the technique, okay? So there's no breathing technique, but we must breathe naturally. What that means is you breathe from your abdomen. That is the way human beings breathe most naturally and efficiently. Okay, I taught on, I think it was Tuesday, Dirga Pranayam, and I suggest that you take a look at that if you want to learn some deep yogic breathing. So the abdominal breathing, that's how we should breathe. So when we sit down, we just check and make sure that when I inhale, my belly comes out, and when I exhale, my belly gently pulls back in, okay? I don't exaggerate it. I'm not trying to breathe deep. I'm not trying to breathe full. I'm not trying. Once again, I'm letting the breath do what it does naturally. I am trusting the body and I'm trusting processes that I don't understand intellectually, okay? So we breathe naturally from here. Once I check and make sure I'm not breathing up here, I'm not trying to take big, deep breaths in and out. I'm not trying to make the breath rhythmic. I'm not trying to stop or hold the breath. I completely let the breath be natural, but natural means breathing from here, even if you're not used to it. This is how the human body was designed to breathe, diaphragmatic breathing from here. So I sit down to meditate. I just check. Am I breathing from down here? Yes? Okay. Then I can forget about the breath from there. All right? So again, if there are any questions about the breath, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next aspect, which is awareness. And this is probably the trickiest part of it. Okay? So we can start with breath awareness. There have been studies that have been done that show that breath awareness is very calming and very relaxing. Okay, so it's not a bad idea when you start meditating to feel calm and relaxed. That can be very beneficial. Again, the yoga postures that we do, yoga breathing, yoga nidra, many of these things are designed to create a parasympathetic response, a relaxation response, a sense of calmness and peace. Okay, this is great preparation for meditation. Now, having said that, one of the most common misunderstandings about meditation is that you need to feel calm while you're meditating. Wrong. All right? In this style of meditation, you might say that if it's working, you won't necessarily feel calm. All right? And whatever needs to come up and whatever needs to happen is going to happen on its own. And your job is simply to allow it and to be aware of it. In a sense, to watch it come and watch it go. Okay? Now, that might sound very simple and sound very easy, but it's harder than it sounds. This whole practice is, for most people, more challenging than it sounds on the surface. It's going to sound easy. When you try it, it will feel boring. It will feel like nothing is happening. Okay? But again, my experience, the experience of I don't know how many people who I've taught meditation to, is it works. It works even though it doesn't feel like it's working. In fact, it might feel like just the opposite, like nothing is happening. But it works if you keep with it, okay? If you are persistent and consistent in your practice, which is true of all yoga. We must be consistent and persistent if we expect any kind of results from our yoga practice. So you can start with breath awareness. That's fine. Some people like to count their breaths. That's fine too. I am not a huge advocate of this approach. Now, again, you might meet a Zen teacher and that's all they teach and they absolutely are, that's the way that they want you to do it. Fine. Then you do it that way if you're studying with that teacher. That's not what I was taught and that's not what I teach. So as quickly as possible, you want to move beyond things like counting the breath or trying to calm yourself down or anything like that. Again, you want to stop trying as quickly as possible. You come into the posture, and in the Zen tradition, we say that this posture is enlightenment. So when I sit down and I take my posture, I make sure that I'm breathing naturally, again, from the belly. What will happen to us, most of us anyway, is very quickly we'll notice that our thoughts begin to bother us. It might not happen the first time you start meditating. It might not happen in the first week or first month. It might happen immediately. Well, that's new. Because the minute before we took this posture and sat down and became quiet and still, all those thoughts were there. But we weren't bothered by them. And this is a deep truth that we need to understand about our reality. That if we are not comfortable with stillness and silence, then we are probably using activity, movement, sound, and distraction to keep ourselves from facing what is in our heart and in our mind, what in yoga is called the chitta, the heart mind. Okay? So we can go on doing that. And it's a little bit like using alcohol or drugs to try and keep out of your awareness emotions and feelings that you don't want to feel, things that you don't want to experience. You drown them, you drown your sorrows in your beer or your drug use or overeating. Right? There are many different kinds of addictions. They don't have to be substance abuse to be an addiction. Right? There are many kinds of addictions. So most of us are addicted to doing, to our lives, to running around, trying to achieve things, to better ourselves, right? I like to call it Project Doug. So most of us have our own project, take your name and put project before it. And we have these ideas of, oh, I need to lose weight. I need to quit smoking. I need to start doing yoga every day. I need to become more spiritual. I need to this. I need to that. I need to. Well, have you ever considered that maybe you don't need to do any of that stuff? What would happen if you just started accepting and loving yourself as you are? Most of us are afraid that we become bad people, or we become fat, or we become unlovable. Almost none of us trust our innate nature. Almost all of us believe that we have to be afraid, and then we need to move from that fear. So I need to be afraid that unless I achieve, do something, then insert the blank. If you're a mother, then you believe unless you try and be a good mother, you won't be one, right? Unless I try and be spiritual, that means I won't be spiritual. Okay, so this is the opposite of that. We sit down, we take this posture, and we don't try. We stop all trying, okay? We're not even trying to follow our breath. Again, if you want to do that for a little while, get yourself calmed down a little bit, centered, that's fine. But at a certain point, you want to let that go. And what I said earlier tends to be the case. Thoughts will start to bubble up, okay? And normally our thoughts don't bother us because, again, we're too busy, we're doing, we're achieving, all this stuff. In fact, our thoughts are usually the ones that are sort of pushing us to do all that stuff. But now we're not going to do anything. We're just going to sit there. All right? Thought comes up. Oh my God, you need to call so-and-so, whatever it is. Don't do it. Okay? Don't do it. Just keep sitting. The thought's going to come up, about all kinds of things you haven't thought about in years. We don't move. And I'll emphasize this point as well. The less movement, the better. The more silence, the better, okay? To an extreme, all right? You really want to emphasize being still, being quiet. Again, you want to try and relax. And that's going to sound like a contradiction. It's not. They're really the same thing. All right? Now, I'll illustrate it to you right now. If I were to all of a sudden die right now, okay? All the energy, all the thoughts, all the emotions went out of my body and I just plopped down here right now, what would happen? When would I get up again? I wouldn't. I would be still, and that would be the end of it, okay? So stillness is really the absence of movement. And that's all you're going to do, is you're going to remove movement, okay, to the best of your ability. You're going to sit there and you're not going to move. And again, that's going to be difficult. And what that's going to do is reveal your inner state, the state of your heart and your mind, okay? So my students hear me say this all the time. Stillness reveals what's going on inside of us. That's the key. Now, the question is, do we like what we see? Okay? So if you get still and quiet and you are sitting here and you are peaceful and you're blissful, great. You probably don't need meditation. Okay? Now, don't fool yourself. If you sit down for 1 minute and you're peaceful and blissful, that doesn't mean anything. Okay? How long can you sustain that? That's the real question. How long can you be with yourself? How long can you love yourself? So most of us are going to sit there for a little while, and then our thoughts are going to start to bother us. Isn't that interesting? Again, because they weren't bothering us before. We didn't care about them. We didn't even notice them. So again, it's working. I think nothing's happening. I'm sitting, wasting my time, and my mind is going wild. Nothing is happening. A lot is happening. You're noticing that your thoughts are bothering you. All right? That's huge. That is huge. Okay? You might also begin to notice that you don't like the way you feel emotionally. Now, there is a relationship between thoughts and emotions, but I don't want to get into that today. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on explaining that. We'll leave that for future sessions or clarification later. But there's a lot going on, and it might feel like or seem like I'm sitting there, nothing's happening, I'm bored, I feel anxious, all of these types of things. Now, I'll say if you feel anxious, if you feel upset, any of these types of emotions, they are there just below the surface. And all the meditation has done has revealed what's there. That's it. All right? The type of meditation I'm teaching you, it does not change anything, it reveals. So, again, if you sit to meditate and you don't like what you find, then that's significant. That's not a situation that we want to go on with, because when you get up off your cushion and you are no longer aware of that, you are in essence throwing those emotions on other people without realizing it. Okay, so if I feel anxiety or I feel other types of emotions that I don't like, if I don't meditate, I don't get rid of those. I don't deal with them on my own. And so then I'm making other people deal with it. So here's the analogy that I like to give to students. Because a lot of people wonder, well, what do I get if I meditate? I'm taking time to do this. What do I get? First of all, I recommend if you can do it 21 minutes a day. If you want to, you can do twice a day. But even just starting once a day, 21 minutes. Secondly, to people who want to know what do I get, I'll say, what do you get when you brush your teeth? You don't get anything, do you? You get to keep something. You get to keep your teeth. Your teeth stay healthy and they stay clean. So meditation is like brushing your mind. When you meditate daily, you get to keep your sanity. If you don't meditate daily, then it's basically like leaving the house without ever brushing your teeth. And your mind starts to rot and get really nasty. And you may never see that, because that's the irony of having a dirty mind, you might say, or a confused mind, is you usually don't see it. It's the rest of us that have to see it and have to deal with it. Okay? So do yourself a favor for your own health, your own well-being. Do your loved ones a favor. Do the world a favor, because we all need it. We need you to start doing this practice, because it really is going to be human consciousness and awareness that gets us out of the challenges and the difficulties that we face ahead. I think the coronavirus is possibly just the beginning of the challenges that we have coming, and we're going to need all the awareness and awakeness that we can get. All right, so let's do a brief 5-minute meditation together, okay? Just 5 minutes. And again, 2-point or 3-point base. Knees are on the cushion. The buttocks is on the other cushion. Hands are in the cosmic or universal mudra. Eyes are open but downcast, and we face the wall. Okay, I'm not going to face the wall because that would be very boring on video, but this is what we're going to do. Okay. All right. So you may not have found that very relaxing. Again, that is not important. We do meditation so that we can be relaxed at stressful times like this during the pandemic, so we can stay relaxed when we're driving in traffic, so we can be relaxed and present when our boss is yelling at us, or our spouse is divorcing us, or our children are doing things we don't approve of. The effects of this type of meditation are not to be judged based on how you feel while you do the practice. That's a little bit like deciding whether cleaning your house was worth it based on how you felt while you were cleaning your house. Now, maybe you're someone who enjoys cleaning, but let's assume you don't. Okay? And you clean the house because you want a clean house, not because you enjoy cleaning it. Okay? It's the end result that we're looking for. And that's how this meditation works. It works very well. It's very simple. Again, simple doesn't mean easy. And yes, there are pitfalls and things that you need to be aware of. So again, I'm available as a teacher. I'm not getting paid anything for this. You don't necessarily have to pay me. I will put some links here though. If you do want to support me or check out my other pages, there are some links for you. I definitely could use support, but this is mostly for you, to support you in your practice, especially during these very stressful times. At least for some people, are very stressful. Share this with anyone who you think can benefit from it. The Patreon page on there, I'm going to be in the links there. I'm going to be updating that, especially during the pandemic. As long as we're sort of shut in the house, I'm going to try and update that every day, usually several times a day, with practices that you can do. There are already a library of practices that are on there that are free, videos like this one. Again, I'm considering doing a follow-up for this if there's interest. We can do a Skype or a Zoom session where you can ask questions, but what I recommend is that tomorrow you get up and you start meditating. You can start with 5 minutes, okay? You don't have to go straight up to 21 minutes. One way to work your way up is you start with 5 minutes and do 5 minutes for a week. And then the next week, just add a minute, okay? And you keep adding a minute every week, and you keep going. All right, now there are things I could say about getting overwhelmed. We don't want to feel overwhelmed when we're doing this, or afterwards especially. So if I'm going to work and I'm freaking out, or I'm freaking out on my loved ones, then I'm probably overdoing it, okay? And so again, freak out, that's a great time to get in touch with your teacher. Hey, is it normal for me to be freaking out? Is it normal for me to have headaches? Is it normal for me to have all these kinds of things? Great question for the teacher, okay? So rather than self-diagnosing and deciding, oh, this isn't right, ask the teacher. Oh, I have a lot of thoughts when I meditate. Is that normal? Yes, it's totally normal, especially at the beginning. So don't worry about it, okay? Versus if you said something else to me, is it normal, to, I don't know, break out in, hives all over my body? Then I would say, no, that's not normal. Let's take a look at that, okay? So anyway, I hope this was helpful. Let me know if there are questions. Again, those of you that are joining later, this will be available after I shut down the live feed, and it will be available on the Patreon page. And I encourage everyone to start meditating. It is a game changer. It's a life changer. It changed my life for the better. It's changed many other people who I've taught it to. It's changed their life, okay? It works. It's not easy or fun necessarily, but it doesn't have to be hard. Again, the essence of this is the only thing that you do during your day where you are completely effortless. Once you take the posture, you are in meditation. The truth is you're always in meditation. You just don't realize it, okay? But in that posture, you can realize your true nature. You can realize you live, you eat, you breathe, you go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth, you do everything in meditation. Now, don't take that the wrong way and think that means that you don't need to meditate, okay? You need to meditate until you want to meditate, and then you maybe don't need to meditate anymore, okay? When you're like, oh boy, I can't wait till I can meditate again, then maybe you don't need it anymore. But as long as you're thinking, I really don't want to meditate, so I'm going to consider everything in my life a meditation, then you probably need to meditate desperately, all right? So I want to make that very clear, because sometimes people read Zen literature that says everything is meditation and they think they don't need formal meditation. All right? Don't jump the gun on that. You're not doing yourself any favors by believing that. All right? So again, I hope this was helpful. Probably not going to get to any questions today. Check out those links. Again, there's a lot of resources on there. And again, I am out of work at the moment. So if you want to contribute, I'm trying to support you guys with these practices. And if you're working and you've got income and cash flow, I definitely appreciate. But the most important contribution is you getting on your cushion and doing your meditation. All right, everyone. So namaste. Thank you for listening. I hope to see you next time. I'll have more content for you in this coming week. Tomorrow, I'm thinking of starting with doing a little bit of maybe some yang yoga, which we haven't done yet. So I hope to see you then. All right. Good night.